share my screen and start us off. Good morning, everyone. Thanks to everyone who worked it into their schedule to be here with us today. Your participation and feedback and input is really important to us being able to achieve the greatest success. And we all know that our utilities are going to benefit from developing our models for maturity. So February 7th, we haven't met we skipped a meeting because the core group was working. So we need to probably reground ourselves in terms of what we did at the last meeting and what's ahead. So today we want to plan the pilot tier 1 assessments, go through what we've done so far with that, set some guidelines for analyzing results from the tier 2 survey, and get your feedback and interest in future engagement. We did get a quick read and who wanted to participate at previous meetings, but it's we should be re-asking and making sure that we've given everybody an opportunity to participate in the pilot. So that's item number 2. Who's willing to engage or has interest right now in engaging? And then we need to set the goals and the schedule for that, as well as the guidelines. And when we get past the tier 1 piece, we're going to step into then finalizing the tier 2 statements and guidelines, and we will be creating working groups. There's quite a bit to come. At our last meeting, we began to identify, and I use emphasis on began, because I think there's probably a few more that might want to join that group, so that we can conduct a pilot implementation. This will be a great opportunity as well as an important contribution to be part of that pilot group. Help us make this tool as good as it can be. And then we will be improving tool and methodology for the tier 2. And we're going to evaluate how we identify action to take based on the assessment results. So a lot of where are we at? Take a next step, get feedback, go back and improve it, and then develop a path for going forward. I think that's the muscle that we've been developing as a collaborative group. And we have to make sure we allow the time and provide the opportunities for that give and take to happen. We want to remind folks that we've got a place to share artifacts, and we need to keep, that's something I oftentimes forget, that we need to keep contributing to that so that others can benefit from that. And then we want to develop the strategy for integrating this with other initiatives. Maybe I'll pause there and see if anybody has any questions relevant to that. Don't see any hands. I think I'll move to the next slide. And so here's the thoughts from the surveying that we did at the meeting about people tier 1 assessment tool. Really high scores. So I think we're on the right track. That's the perception that we all have as participants so far. And the only one that scored below a 4 was the tool is useful for a specific business process or function all the way to organization-wide. And that might reflect exactly where we're at, I think, in terms of looking at the pieces and not the whole yet. So I think that's an area we can pay attention to and see if there's changes that we could bring to that. This is a little bit maybe hard to read. I think you can zoom on your screen. I could try and move this around a bit. So this was the specific questions that we got posted. Maybe that's a little better. I can make this a little bit bigger this way.
It looks good.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks good.
Thank you. Getting enough responses to be statistically significant, I think, is a real issue. Has been for my organization. We've done engagement surveys in the past, and we're not able to achieve that participation. But the organization did just do one, and we took it upon ourselves to promote it and encourage it and communicate it. And we were able to achieve the highest level of participation across the organization that I'm a part of. So it's possible, but it really, I think, comes down to communication and making it, providing time, making sure employees can get that done. So I think that's an important element for us to consider as part of this rollout. How do we ensure that an organization will get that statistically significant participation? So you can read the other responses there. Getting responses from the frontline workers, I think that falls in line with the other one. That's part of what we focused on, as we knew our operators and our plants would be less inclined. It would be a little more challenging for them to respond. And we came up with some ways. So back to the artifacts, maybe it's things that organizations have found to be successful in increasing participation for those situations. And of course, I think that is part of a communication plan. So it's interesting how common the theme is for these comments that we received. And that'll be something that we need to incorporate into our product. So then we did a quick who was online at that time taking the survey with us, who was interested in the pilot or test. So we've got some early indications of interest, but we might have some folks today that weren't on this call that are interested. So we want to keep the door open for others to indicate their interest in being part of the pilot. And maybe I'll pause there and see if there's any questions or comments. And then I think Cello's got a couple slides he wants to go through with us. Anybody on the call that wants to indicate that they're interested in the pilot or have potentially could consider it? Assuming if you haven't already indicated on the survey.
Okay, sir, I'll assume that you're muted.
Oh, no, I think I did add, I did update when we did this, right? This was at the last meeting, but I do want, I mean, Deborah is new to our team. I think if we can get Deborah sort of acclimated as well to what this tool does, then Deborah and I can kind of talk about how we can do this at GLW and when is an opportune time. I know that right now we've got way too many projects that just kick-started. May not be a good time, but maybe later this year, what process we can do. So Deborah and I can tag team, but I think I need her to get up to speed with what we've done and what we're talking about before we can finalize that decision.
Well, I'm familiar with these type of tools, so if you just send what you have, then I can review it. But this is something that I had already kind of had been talking to Majid Khan about. He had come to me a couple months ago saying that he felt like it was time for us to start documenting some of the things that, you know, some of the transformational type things and change management type things that I've done. So this was perfect timing to get connected with this group. So yeah, if you sent me what you already have, or if I already have it in my email somewhere, I can go back and look, but I don't remember getting what you've done thus far. And I can go from there because I'm very, like I said, familiar with these type of tools. I've created some in my past, so
That's fantastic. I will be sending you an email and point to where the file is and where the tools, and we have an explanation of everything, how it works. And I'd also be happy if you can find time to spend, we can have a Microsoft Teams call, and I can kind of point you where the folders are and talk about it. Because we have videos, but it'd be more effective and efficient for you to for us to have a conversation than to me to just point you to the videos, you know what I mean? And then you have to wait. It's just not as efficient.
Can we set something up for Friday? Because I just got a text saying a big block of my time got opened up.
Okay.
So Friday afternoon seems to be open now where it wasn't before.
Okay. How about 1 o'clock?
Perfect.
Okay. I'll send you an invite right now.
Cello,
Thank you.
can you put me on that invite as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think Scott has his.
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, this was just a clarifying comment, is that for those that don't remember or weren't involved, we had said that this is an assessment tool that could be used all the way to from a organization-wide type of assessment to something around a specific process or function. And what we mean by that, and we were really targeting a specific process or function. And Alice is on the line, for example, and had said that, well, she wanted to take a particular group that she's working with and apply it. And I think Great Lakes was even earlier talking about around a certain function that they have. But there's also the idea of taking a particular business process and getting the stakeholders together and using that as a framework. So that's just background clarification. So there's choices in terms of how you want to apply it.
Yeah, and just, Deborah mentioned Majid Khan, so he's the director of our waste water recovery facility. And so and then within that, I mean, maybe, as we work towards it that's huge, right? We could pick a business process within that resource recovery to pilot this. So, yeah.
And Alice, maybe you want to comment on
Alice just sent me an email saying that, oh, are you
Actually,
on, Alice?
I believe it's been fixed, if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you, yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, sorry, I missed part of the meeting though, so I'm not quite sure what you're asking, Scott.
Oh, it was like you were talking about doing a pilot around a particular group that you're leading or working with, as opposed to maybe a specific business process.
Yeah, exactly, because just within my organization, it would take a long time to get permission for any specific business process that we're looking at changing right now. But since I'm leading this one particular group that we're just getting together, that's more employees from across our bureau, it's just something that I could implement fairly quickly and we could get some decent feedback.
Excellent. That's really good. Okay.
Cello, do you want me to advance the slide? And
Yes, please, yeah. So so far I have Great Lakes, Deborah and Keisra, we set up a meeting, we'll go forward. And Alice, you've been on the core team last year. You know where things are. If you need any help, you can just ping me, but I think you're probably good to go, right?
Yeah, I should be good to go.
Okay. Phil is on the line. Phil, any chance that you guys may be interested in doing a pilot?
I'm going to say yes, that there is a chance. However, I'd like to have a conversation with Marco and Ramona to make sure that they are on board with this. So I'm going to say tentatively yes for now.
Okay. Okay, I put small tentatively and a big yes in my notebook, so.
That's fine, Cello. I appreciate that.
Yeah, anyway, that's great. If we could get 3 pilots, that would be really excellent. So
sure. You will share these slides after the meeting, is that correct?
That's correct. We're going to share the slides. We're going to share the recording of the video as well. And if you have any questions, please, please just, send me an email and I'll do whatever I can to, get you the clarification.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, excellent.
Sure.
Okay.
Lisa, if I could, this is Scott, if I could just add one more comment, actually two. One, I think, Lisa, you were in the process of deciding a particular group or function or process that might work for MCES, which is great. The other clarifying thing for a couple who haven't been involved is this, what we have, and Cello, you might want to, or others, you might want to chime in, is that we have tier 1 questions, and then we have a tier 2 type of questions and process. And the tier 1 was aimed at, was the result of a lot of work by the core team in this group, and Cello's sharing that the tier 1 system. But the idea was here to identify where the major gaps and challenge areas are. And then it was to be followed by tier 2, which was more around what do you do with it? What are the solutions to the problem or the areas that would have a big impact in addressing these problems? And that would be tier 2. So we were starting with tier 1, but we were also, and we'll get to it, but wanted to engage people in finalizing what tier 2 would look like so that that's ready to go for those that are doing their pilots. And I'll just leave it there, but others could chime in.
Yeah, Scott, that was Lisa is sharing this the form. Yeah.
Hey, way to go, Lisa.
Yeah, since we have these gaps in our, connecting as a group, I think it's always helpful to get regrounded in the specifics so we know what we're calling to mind what we're talking about in a clear way. So I think these questions are actually really awesome. And I think the doorway to beginning the conversation to find out, are we getting the basics for our culture in a good place? And it's, I think, really important for us to be as leaders realizing that transformation is an inside job. And so the more we can get feedback to understand, well, how are we showing up? What kind of impact are we having as leaders? These are really those questions that get at how's it being received in the workforce? So
yeah.
And I will see. I think I better get back to our PowerPoint.
Yeah. So that these are the you can indicate in the chat. One, the second point is if you have an interest in engaging in the piece that would analyze the responses to the tier 1 survey and generate reporting that would be even more helpful. We have visual reporting right now in Power BI, but if we'd like to add some guidelines for using tier 1 and what do specific scores mean, please let me know, indicate in the chat, say, yeah, I'd like to get engaged on that, because it will be a collaborative effort that will include people from utilities. And tier 2 are the follow-up based on the responses to tier 1 generate, will tell us if there's a need to follow up on some of the 7 categories. And for each of the 7 categories, we have some tier 2 statements, which are sort of how could we improve that we could use. So you can also indicate in the chat window if you're interested in being engaged in that as well. So That's number 2 and number 3. We also had a discussion with Mark Homeric from City of Baltimore about reviewing these questions. We've gone through a lot of sausage making to come where we are, but just to look at those things and from the DE&I perspective, and so if you'd like to engage, you can also put this into the chat line, and we'd like to open it up for people to participate and help us out. So those are the things that are, the working groups that we would that we're looking for. So I'll go back to Lisa and Scott and see. We were planning to have a little bit shorter meeting today, but just to see, how we move on from here. This was this was kind of the ask slide at the end.
At least for those that are going to participate in the pilots, either immediately or later on and want to be involved, but others who might want to participate in this process, we had also in the core team looked at what the process looks like to conduct all of this and what those major steps were. And one of the important things was to imagine that what you'd wind up doing is identifying who your stakeholders are that are going to participate in the survey, and that you would have some guidelines and instructions and basically a planning type of process that you would use to basically identify why you're doing it, what your purpose is, what you're trying to accomplish, what's involved in this process, and you could do this. There was the comment earlier about when you're dealing with field employees, it might even be better to do this in person rather than through emails. So anyway, we would be working with the group at least to identify what some short instructions would be that could apply to the process. So we kind of laid out what would the internal process look like, and how does this fit with tier 1, tier 2, and even how does it relate to overall WISE objectives. So there's a lot of work to do. Maybe it's not rocket science actually, but it's necessary planning that we need to do if you're going to be one of the pilots, to make sure that we're covering your interests and that it's going to help you make it work effectively in your organization.
Okay, so I think, Lisa, this was mostly what we were hoping to get, is some commitments, and we have some, and we had a little bit of a light turnout today. So I'll leave it up to you and Scott to see if there are any additional things we want to get into today.
Would it be helpful for me to quickly screen share tier 2?
Sure, if you'd like, yeah.
Engagement, since that's been our focus, just to make sure folks, because sometimes if you're uncertain, you hesitate because you want to make sure you're offering to contribute where you have something that you can weigh in and have value or co-create. So few less questions on this one at this point. It's how often do you think about changing jobs? Last employee evaluation, did you agree that it was a transparent process? Do you agree, or are you getting recognized fairly based on what you do? How often do you talk about where you work with people outside the organization? How satisfied overall are you with your job? How likely would you be to change jobs in this next 6 months? What kind of training opportunities are you getting in your job? Are new ideas and solutions being implemented? And does the organization give you the authority that you need to make decisions in your job so you can take ownership of the work? So, you know, that's where we're at with tier 2. And maybe that'll help you have a little better idea what we're looking for in terms of your support to work on this tier 2.
Yeah, and others can chime in, but some work that the core team has done was to basically take the tier 1 categories and say, if you scored low in a particular area, we tried to say, create some statements of what are some actions that you could take that would help address those shortcomings. So trying to turn it into through additional kind of input from the stakeholders, what are things that you think that would be effective in addressing the particular problems that were identified. So there's been some real good work, and there's more kind of refinement that needs to happen for those that want to help work on that as well.
And Parijat didn't, from Kansas City, didn't join us today, but they have also expressed an interest in piloting. So we may get 4. We may get 4 pilots, so that'll be good. Thank you, Phil.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Any closing comments or questions? I think I cut somebody off. I didn't mean to, so please.
No, you didn't cut me off, but thank you for saying that. I was just telling Cello that he was welcome. I commented on the questions for tier 2. I think they're very good questions. So thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I think we could call this a wrap.